Hello everyone and welcome. We're doing two things in today's episode. One, we're going to discuss my point of view on the new patch which has hit Dark and Darker. It's fundamentally shaken up the loot game, completely changing the orientation around normal game mode, and it has implemented some final usability and quality of life stuff for the Expressman. Also in this episode, I'm going to share with you a couple of gems that I've picked out of the pile of Steam's NextFest, which is going on through the 21st of October. And I really encourage you to try these games for free because I've been having a ton of fun with this iteration of Steam's NextFest. Man, Steam is just so great. Anyway, let's talk about Dark and Darker. So the amigos and I have put in several long sessions over the last several nights after these massive loot changes. And I've been taking some time to really kind of analyze how it's impacting the game. But first, I'd like to congratulate the Iron Mace team for finishing the Expressman's implementation. He is now truly feature complete, and it feels wonderful to interact with this system now. Bravo. I think this system should be used as a template for your user experience moving forward. Guys, please don't release new things until it reaches at least this level of polish and usability. Otherwise, you just burn goodwill, or at worst, you build resentment towards the new system. For those of you out of the loop, the Expressman now has the same context-sensitive menus as every other thing in Dark and Darker. You can right-click items into him when you're in between lobbies, and you can select everything out of him once you get back to your stash tab, making it a couple clicks to do everything you want to do. Lastly, they also added a 10-second buffer while you're in the waiting room between floors of your dungeon crawl. I know 10 seconds doesn't sound like a lot of time, but it's all the difference in the world when you just need to bank a few items before going down. Another change from this patch, all monsters have had their magic resist reduced, and the net effect of this is that spellcasting classes and people who employ a lot of magic damage will be clearing the map faster. Monsters go down with fewer hits, fewer spells are exhausted. Feels like a great change so far. I know mostly I've been playing Cleric since the patch dropped, and it's very noticeable even from a mild Cleric magic damage DPS perspective. But without a doubt, the biggest change this patch is to the loot. Loot tables have been updated, and these loot changes are likely the most significant change to the game that we've seen since the initial Steam release in June. I have many thoughts. For the benefit of those who have not played since the patch, loot is now at bizarro levels of crazy. You will regularly find epic quality gear on the first level of normal dungeons. If you clear through 3 levels of the dungeon and extract, you will likely do so in a set of gear which is gear score 400 plus. I extracted from several raids yesterday in half legendary and half epic gear from a single 3-level clear of a normal dungeon. Who's going to complain about more loot? Aside from the supersized dopamine hits that the new gearing can give, the game has taken a rather hard turn into a winners win more orientation. On the one hand, when you defeat an enemy now or a team, there's a real possibility that when you go to loot them, you're going to find really solid gear. It's actually exciting to loot an enemy player now to see what amazing loot they had scooped up before you ran into them. On the other hand, this is a giant shakeup for the lower gear score lobbies, one that brings outsized changes to both the time to kill equation and what classes can be viable in a given bracket. As you all likely know, some classes simply scale better with gear, but tend to kind of suck with base or squire level gear. It's now feasible to bring all of these classes into norms in base kit and just scrounge your way up to a pretty decent kit before you start looking for trouble. Now, you likely already know this about Koopa, but I really love the self-found gear game. I find it really fun to adjust my build on the fly as I find new loot and increment towards the build I'd like to run. These changes make it feel really good to play in this manner. The time to kill changes, well, big picture, I'm still processing. The wider gear ranges introduce a lot of uncertainty into the decision-making process about whether or not you should take a fight. I think this will make the game harder on new players, as it will be more difficult to decipher why they won or why they lost a fight. I'm also afraid that new players will look at their role as a new player in the game as simply couriers, as they're going to be picking up great gear and couriering it to more experienced or better skilled players. Regardless of how you look at it, the new gear changes introduce more gear and therefore a faster time to kill in normal lobbies. The faster TTK, the inherent increase in movement speed, the game simply plays faster. And that means front-loaded damage is going to be more valuable than attrition or chip damage. But also, faster from a map clearing perspective and a PvE perspective, it feels really good to two-shot skeletons in normal lobbies. It feels really good to be able to clear maps quickly and find PvP fights with higher frequency. Also, the reduction in magic resist for monsters across the board is extremely noticeable. And just as an aside, like, the amigos and I set a new personal best on the Lich fight as a result of these magic damage changes. I mean, the more cynical out there may view these changes as a reactionary kind of pandering to the community caused by a dramatic drop in daily active players over the last several weeks. I mean, people love loot. But I think there's more to this than that. I think this is a strategic phasing out of the normal game mode as a default for many players, by allowing you to quickly gear up in the hopes that you'll take these new sets that you're accumulating through a successful run right into a high roller game. And that use case is extremely likely. I'm very curious to see if more players will kind of let it ride, taking these sets and rolling directly into high roller. Regardless, the value of gear is greatly diminished. If you're anything like me and you've been, collecting sets, it's time to go through your closet, go through your stash tabs, and clean out a bunch of legendary loot that is no longer as valuable as it used to be, because you're now going to be able to accumulate a lot more, a lot better legendary loot in no time. So that about wraps it up from a Dark and Darker perspective, but I did want to kind of talk about some of the things I've been doing in my free time, and I'm talking about Steam NextFest free demos, and here are my top 3 wish-listed games from this NextFest. Actually, before we jump into that, let's talk real briefly about Legacy, Sorcery and Steel. It is basically available right now as a free demo, early alpha, and it is Dark and Darker with a different art style and in a third-person perspective. It's got different weapons and slightly more rigid class definitions, but if you're looking for something like Dark and Darker that's free and available right now, and you don't like dungeon porn like I don't like dungeon porn, you can take a look at this. It has a long way to go, but there's some good ideas here, and we'll see where it goes. Just be ready for bugs, be ready for cutthroat PvP that you don't really understand what's happening in, and, terrible performance optimization around, like, in-game assets. Do you have somebody in your life who's looking for a nice cozy game? I've got a 9-year-old nephew, and I'm always on the lookout for things that we can play together, and I'd like to introduce you to Luma Island. This is a really, really good-looking cozy game. It supports 4-player co-op, and its art style is just precious. It's also, like I said, at a really high degree of polish, and I think it'll be fun for people who enjoy cozy games of all ages. This is a great one. I played around with the demo. The demo is pretty short. It only allows you to play through the first 5 days, but I can see this one doing really, really well. And if you're looking for that kind of game to play over this weekend until the Steam NextFest ends, give it a try. I put it on my wish list. I know I'll be playing it with my nephew. Coming in at number 2, we have Deepest Dungeons. Now, I'm a sucker for a dungeon crawl, and this is a procedurally generated dungeon. It's a roguelite. It's a 0 to hero, and I really enjoy the slow-paced, methodical clearing. The first 5 levels of the dungeon are available in this demo, and you'll knock it out in about 20 or 30 minutes. But I really enjoyed my time with it. I think it has a lot of potential. I'm not sure where they are in their overall development cycle, how close to release they are, but what they have right now is compelling, and I think it's a solid foundation. I'll be keeping a close eye on this one moving forward. But lastly, and coming in at number 1, I want to talk about this pick. I have really enjoyed playing this. I am talking about Mandragora. This is a fantastic game, and it is a mashup. If you took Elden Ring and smashed it together with a modern Metroidvania, you'd get this title. And when I say it has a high degree of polish, I am not kidding around. If you enjoyed playing Elden Ring, or if you enjoyed Metroidvanias, this is a game you absolutely must try. The art direction and overall aesthetic is amazing. These systems are deep and complex, but easily approachable. The voice acting so far has been superb. I love everything about this, and I wish I could play it right now. If you're on the hunt for a good game, I highly recommend you check this out. Anyway, that's all I've got today. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you do, please like and subscribe. Regardless, I wish you good fortune in your raids to come, and until next time, Koopa out.